The pound is down big today, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing why that is, what it means, and where the pound itself could be headed next. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so taking a look here at the pound, against multiple different currency pairs, multiple different currencies, we saw the pound come down real hard in the last several hours of trading here in the London and New York session here, September 28th. Now, why is that and what can we do about it? Well, first of all, let's go sort of analyze the situation and discuss sort of what we're seeing happening. So right now on the pound yen, you can see from the peak there, we are down almost 200 pips in just a very brief couple hours. This is a 1 hour chart that we're taking a look at. We can take a look at the euro pound. You can see that the euro is strengthening substantially against the pound. This one's probably the most interesting chart because you can see from here up over 100 pips on this move. And this is sort of a currency pair that doesn't really move a whole lot. So that's really saying something. Next up, we'll take a look at the pound against the US dollar, which you can see is tanking very, very hard today as the dollar becomes quite strong, especially relative to that weakening pound. So that's kind of a bird's eye view as to what's happening on the chart. But why is this happening? And is there a play here that could be taken advantage of? Well, here's what I want to say. So there's a couple different factors that I have gathered that I think are really driving the price lower on the pound. The first thing I want to discuss is, of course, the move into risk-off assets. Today, we are seeing things like the euro, we're seeing things like the Swiss franc, the Japanese yen, and the dollar become a bit strong. That's what we would call a move on into risk off, okay? And why would that be happening? Why is there a push into risk off assets? Again, things like the US dollar, the CHF, the JPY, and of course the euro. Why would that be happening today? Well, there's a big talk right now in light of the conversation around monetary policy tightening around the world. Monetary policy tightening generally means less stimulus, less growth, and can sometimes be perceived as very negative for the stock market, which is a key clue to what we're seeing today happen with the pound. So let's go take a look at the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is down big today. We're seeing a big fat sell-off as people basically get out of there in terms of stocks in the short term. This is an hourly chart and you can see a lot of sell-off here. It's not just the GBP, but it is also the stock market, and in some ways they are actually tied together. So we'll head back to pound yen, for example, which is seeing a massive drop as people basically sell out of the pound, which is inherently a risk-on currency, and flock to these risk-off currencies. Again, that yen being one of them and that dollar. So we're seeing a big push into risk-off assets and away from those risk-on assets, which include things like the pound. We can also take a look, for example, at NZD JPY, which is down big today as well, as people move away from those riskier currencies and put their money into something that is a bit more safe haven-esque or considered more safe relative to those riskier assets, commodities, and of course economies that are slower or not as large as Japan, the US, the euro area, etc. So again, specifically looking at the pound against things like the yen, etc., is now the time to be selling, or should we buy the dip on some of these moves? Well, my opinion, I've shared this a few different times when I made a video about last week with the S&P 500. I've been fairly sort of hesitant to be jumping into a bunch of risk on assets. It does look like monetary policy is looking to sort of head in the direction of tightening. And that is a response to, hey, things have been really rebounding at a good rate, but maybe it's time to cool the jets on all of the stimulus, all of the massive growth. There's probably a safer, slower rate of sort of normalcy that a lot of central banks are looking to get back to. So when looking at things like the pound yen, in my opinion, this is not sort of just a move where it's just going to be down and then all the way back up. It could, and I could be completely wrong and look like an idiot in about 24 hours. But my idea here is I think that the pound move to the downside and some of these other ones that are a little bit on the higher risk side could be headed for some deeper retracements. Looking specifically at the pound yen, for example, maybe if price is able to pull back to some of these levels, you may see continued sell pressure as we already saw on that NZD JPY, right? We saw, an attempt from the buyers and then some follow through. So maybe there is more of that to come. Let's go take a look at that Euro GBP, which was especially interesting as the Euro just got favored big time against the pound. Perhaps we see some pullbacks, and if so, maybe there's some opportunities to get involved with this thing actually going with the flow of the path of least resistance, which in my opinion would have to be to the upside here for the euro against the pound, at least for now. With monetary policy tightening and all sort of the wind in the sails of those risk-off assets right now, I think that things like the dollar are set to continue to get strong, which, by the way, this big push into the dollar today was especially sort of not great for things like those higher risk currencies, things like the CAD, the GBP, which is the focus of this video, and others, right? So again, with that big push on the dollar, I think that this may be set to continue. We did put in highs of the year just here a bit ago, which of course, looking at pound dollar, caused a big spike to the downside, and even favoring a low or putting in a low of the year here for the pound. So one of my favorite setups here has to be on the higher time frames, looking at this daily chart here for the pound against the dollar. We are seeing lower highs, and I think that there may be some more plays to capitalize on here. Maybe there's something like, hey, we see a little bit more downside, there's a pullback play, and you could possibly even look at the continuation side of things, looking at this pound weakness. Now, if I'm completely wrong about this and the pound gets super strong overnight, of course, in that situation, I may look to reverse the script. I'm not opposed to changing my mind if things change, but again, for now, it does seem like the signals are more to the downside on things like the pound, the NZD, and the AUD, at least for the short term, especially with the dollar being so strong. Again, that DXY really driving the markets today, that strength on the dollar causing the stock market to come down a bit, the pound to get weak, as people are sort of saying, hey, the dollar looks attractive, and people are pulling their money from other places and parking it in the dollar. So for me, looking at everything that we've looked at today, I think that looking at the pound dollar specifically, this is sort of one of my more favorite interests on the south side, looking for more sell pressure. I think that the path of least resistance here is just going with this news. There is one piece of news that I forgot to mention, which is the UK supply line issue with the gas and oil sort of situation. They're having an energy crisis over there in the UK, as things are quite scary as well. That just adds more to the risk-off sentiment, people concerned about markets. That sort of thing can cause supply lines issues, can cause all sorts of GDP slows and pauses in recovery, which can even make the pound less attractive. So although I do like the idea of being a bull on the pound, I need to see the signals there. And until they're there, I am more on the bearish side when looking at the GBP USD, the GBP JPY, and bullish on things like Euro GBP. So again, looking for pullback plays, looking for continuations if you're trading the pound may be the way to go, at least for the time being. Of course, please remember this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my thoughts and opinions, but I do like this idea here of a possible pullback play on something like Euro GBP for extending that upward momentum that we're already sort of seeing come into this market. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a big favor, hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want more free trading coverage. I do stuff like this all the time, so it may benefit you if you're trying to get better as a trader. So with that said, appreciate you watching, and we'll see you back in the next one. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching today's video. There are more videos available on our channel here and here, so go ahead and click into that for some more free trading content. With that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you back next time.